Specific code requirements may vary depending on the local jurisdiction. However, the following general guidelines are commonly used. The trench should be deep enough to protect the power line from damage, typically a minimum of 18 to 24 inches deep. Concrete slabs in driveways typically do not have reinforcing steel. However, if you encounter existing reinforcing steel, it should be cut and replaced as needed. The cut edges of the concrete should be clean and square. Use a filler material suitable for the expected loading conditions, such as concrete patching materials or mortar. Fill the trench completely and tamp it down to ensure solid compaction. Allow the patching material to cure according to the manufacturer's instructions. To prevent movement between the two severed ends of the drive, it is recommended to use a joint reinforcement system. This can involve installing a dowel bar or key joint. A dowel bar is a steel rod that is anchored into both sides of the joint. A key joint is a groove cut into the concrete on both sides of the joint that allows for interlocking. Use a concrete saw to cut the driveway, ensuring a clean and straight cut. Excavate the trench carefully without damaging the surrounding concrete. Install the electrical conduit in accordance with electrical codes. Backfill the trench with compacted soil or sand before replacing the concrete. It is always best to consult with the local authority having jurisdiction to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. When running power under a driveway, firstly, ensure the trench depth meets local code requirements, typically between 18 and 24 inches, to protect the buried conduit from damage. Secondly, if existing reinforcing steel is encountered in the concrete slab, it must be properly cut and replaced to maintain the structural integrity of the driveway. Thirdly, prepare the cut edges of the concrete by ensuring they are clean and square to facilitate a strong and seamless repair. Fourthly, select a suitable filler material, such as concrete patching materials or mortar, that can withstand the expected loading conditions of the driveway. Fifthly, completely fill the trench with the patching material, compacting it thoroughly to eliminate air pockets and ensure a solid, stable base. Sixthly, allow the patching material to cure according to the manufacturer's instructions, as proper curing is essential for achieving maximum strength and durability. Seventhly, implement a joint reinforcement system, such as installing a dowel bar or key joint to prevent movement between the severed ends of the driveway and maintain alignment. Eighthly, use a concrete saw to make clean and straight cuts in the driveway, minimizing damage to the surrounding concrete and ensuring a professional finish. Ninthly, carefully excavate the trench to avoid damaging the surrounding concrete, preserving the structural integrity and appearance of the driveway. Tenthly, install the electrical conduit in strict accordance with electrical codes, ensuring proper wiring methods, grounding, and protection from physical damage. 11thly, before replacing the concrete, backfill the trench with compacted soil or sand to provide a stable and level base for the patching material. The depth of the trench is crucial. Local electrical codes typically dictate the minimum burial depth for electrical conduits or cables to protect them from physical damage. This depth often falls between 18 and 24 inches, but it's essential to confirm the exact requirement with your local authority having jurisdiction or electrical inspector. If the trench isn't deep enough, the conduit could be vulnerable to damage from vehicles or other activities in the driveway. If you encounter reinforcing steel, also known as rebar, within the concrete slab, it's essential to address it properly. Simply cutting the rebar without replacing it can weaken the structural integrity of the driveway. The best practice is to cut the rebar and then replace it with new rebar that is properly lapped and tied to the existing rebar. This ensures that the load-bearing capacity of the concrete slab is maintained. When repairing the cut concrete, the preparation of the edges is paramount. Clean and square edges provide the best surface for the patching material to bond to. Use a concrete saw to achieve this, and remove any loose debris or crumbling concrete. A bonding agent can also be applied to the edges to further enhance the adhesion of the patching material. Selecting the right filler material is critical for a durable repair. Concrete patching materials or mortar are commonly used, but it's important to choose a product that is specifically designed for the type of concrete you're working with and the expected loading conditions. High-traffic driveways may require a higher strength patching material. Proper compaction of the filler material is essential for preventing voids and ensuring a solid, stable repair. Use a hand tamper or other suitable tool to compact the patching material in layers, ensuring that each layer is thoroughly compacted before adding the next. Curing is the process of keeping the concrete moist for a period of time after it has been placed, which allows the cement to properly hydrate and gain strength. Follow the manufacturer's instructions for curing the patching material, which typically involves covering it with plastic or spraying it with water regularly for several days. To prevent movement between the severed ends of the driveway, a joint reinforcement system is highly recommended. A dowel bar is a steel rod that is inserted into holes drilled into both sides of the joint, providing mechanical connection and preventing vertical displacement. A key joint is a groove cut into the concrete on both sides of the joint, which is then filled with a flexible sealant. This allows for some movement while still maintaining alignment. Using a concrete saw for cutting the driveway is essential for achieving clean and straight cuts. This tool provides a precise and controlled cut, minimizing damage to the surrounding concrete. When excavating the trench, take care to avoid damaging the surrounding concrete. Use hand tools or small excavating equipment to carefully remove the soil and avoid putting excessive stress on the edges of the concrete. The electrical codes dictate the proper methods for installing electrical conduits, including the type of conduit to use, the burial depth, and the grounding requirements. Ensure that you are familiar with these codes and follow them carefully to ensure a safe and compliant installation. Before replacing the concrete, backfilling the trench with compacted soil or sand provides a stable and level base for the patching material. This also helps to protect the conduit from physical damage. Always consult with your local authority having jurisdiction to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Electrical codes can vary from one jurisdiction to another, and it's important to be aware of the specific requirements in your area. In summary, running power under a driveway requires careful planning and execution to ensure a safe and durable installation. By following these guidelines and consulting with local authorities, you can successfully complete this project while complying with all applicable codes and regulations. These guidelines ensure the safety and longevity of the installation. It's essential to use the right materials, follow proper techniques, and always consult with local authorities to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous, so it's always best to hire a qualified electrician if you are not comfortable doing it yourself. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, provides comprehensive guidelines for electrical installations, but local codes may have additional requirements. It's important to be aware of both the NEC and your local codes to ensure compliance. When running conduit under a driveway, consider using rigid metal conduit, or RMC, or intermediate metal conduit, or IMC, for added protection against physical damage. These types of conduit are stronger and more durable than non-metallic conduit. Also ensure that the conduit is properly grounded to prevent electrical hazards. Proper grounding involves connecting the conduit to grounding electrode system, which provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source in the event of a short circuit. This helps to trip the circuit breaker or fuse, preventing electrical shock. In addition to the depth of the trench, also consider the width of the trench. The trench should be wide enough to allow for easy installation of the conduit and backfilling. It should also be wide enough to prevent the conduit from being damaged by the weight of the soil. When backfilling the trench, use compacted soil or sand to provide a stable base for the concrete. Avoid using rocks or other debris, as these can damage the conduit. Also, be sure to compact the backfill in layers to prevent settling. Settling can cause the concrete to crack, which can damage the conduit. When repairing the concrete, use a concrete mix that is specifically designed for patching. These mixes are typically stronger and more durable than regular concrete mixes. Also, be sure to follow the manufacturer's instructions for mixing and applying the patching material. The strength of concrete is measured in pounds per square inch, or SI. Driveway concrete typically has a compressive strength of 3,000 to 4,000 psi. When patching concrete, use a patching material that has a similar compressive strength. To ensure a solid connection between the severed ends of the driveway, consider using a concrete bonding adhesive. This adhesive is applied to the edges of the existing concrete before the patching material is applied. It helps to create a strong bond between the old and new concrete. Also, consider using expansion joints to allow for movement due to temperature changes. Expansion joints are gaps that are left in the concrete to allow it to expand and contract without cracking. These gaps are typically filled with a flexible sealant. When installing a dowel bar, use a drill to create holes in the existing concrete. The holes should be slightly larger than the diameter of the dowel bar. Then, insert the dowel bar into the holes and fill the remaining space with epoxy. When installing a keyed joint, use a special tool to create a groove in the concrete on both sides of the joint. The groove should be deep enough to allow for interlocking. Then, fill the groove with a flexible sealant. In addition to the above guidelines, it's also important to consider the aesthetics of the repair. Try to match the color and texture of the existing concrete as closely as possible. This will help to make the repair less noticeable. Also, be sure to clean up any excess patching material or sealant. Leaving excess material can create an unsightly mess. Running power under a driveway is a complex project that requires careful planning and execution. By following these guidelines and consulting with local authorities, you can successfully complete this project while complying with all applicable codes and regulations. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous, so it's always best to hire a qualified electrician if you're not comfortable doing it yourself.